Third phase, aha moments. They started to come in succession now. To talk about this story, I went back to my notes just to kind of look at how I framed this when I was kind of trying to put together a plan. So I've actually got a kind of sketched out PowerPoint and some pictures I drew and kind of scanned in where these ideas came together. And I want to hit kind of 4 insights that I had. One was, this is about structures. We're going to have to tinker with the structures to help. Otherwise, what we have is people are having something that's already kind of difficult. It's even steeper for them because we haven't made this easy. Things like 20+ hour practicums, things like not having access to high quality contextualized statistical training. That's not going to get us where we want to go easily. People are going to have to essentially teach themselves under this model, and most students don't have the time or energy to do that unless we can clear the path a bit more. Number 2, this is going to take a lot of energy. It's going to take more energy than I have, is what I was realizing, because there's pushback at every level. It's not anything specific to our system. It's just how systems work. It's probably a good property of systems many times because before you go and kind of change everything, and there could be all sorts of unintended consequences. So an idea has to kind of rise to a certain level of kind of incremental validity or whatever. You have to show some evidence that this is going to be helpful. And one of the ways that our system does that, just like many others, is it takes a lot of energy to kind of get something new going. The startup costs are high, barriers to entry, all those kind of ideas. So, the way I kind of warn assistant professors of this, the way ideas kind of die in our department, people don't tend to directly undercut an idea. Often the strategy that works best and is kind of least conflictual is just to ask questions that are going to unsettle the idea enough so that you can't really quite move forward, and it just puts it in a holding pattern. And then most people don't really follow through on kind of addressing those snags or whatever. So you can basically, it's almost like a filibuster in Congress. You can slow something down to the point where it can't really move forward without highly direct conflict. So I was realizing that anything that we were going to try to do was going to face this kind of drag, this kind of viscosity, and nothing was going to be easy. So how were we going to shift the culture and kind of make incremental improvements without really having lots of energy and resources, which it wasn't clear to me where that was going to come from. So that was my third insight. So how are we going to get this energy? What I realized is that the biggest resource in our department in terms of generating extra energy was actually our doc students. They were being underutilized. For GRAs, they were doing work, and it was largely just the financial structure of our department. The work they were doing was below their skill set. It wasn't necessarily challenging them to develop new skills. It was to carry forward the work of the department. And what I realized is the model needed to shift. We needed to shift to a model of allocating doctoral students' time, not quote unquote protecting it. At least that's what I did on our team. So traditionally the model had been, okay, let people on grants, they're going to work on grants. So again, the doc students training goals aren't necessarily the priority. It's actually project focused, which is fine. And then when it came to departmental needs, we tried to spread around the responsibilities and then give as many people as possible, quote, research time. And when I first got here, that was 2 semesters of your GRA is research, and your advisor will kind of have you work on your pre-dis or, one of their projects. But often what this turned into was work on a pre-dis that sometimes didn't turn into work on a pre-dis. And what I realized is, at least for some students, having them work on a pre-dis before they had kind of gotten acculturated to a more productive set of team norms around writing and research wasn't really a good allocation of their time early on. So the incentive structures just weren't very intrinsically motivating. I started to question the benefit of this protecting the time model. And what I started to shift towards is, let's allocate the time and let's work together. Let's form a leadership team. And the leadership team was not just my lab. It was anyone who was kind of invested in the mission and the purpose of the work we were doing. So there were 2 parts. One was helping people who were thinking about writing careers and however that might be involved in their professional goals. And then number 2, which kind of developed over time, we also took on projects as a group to give people chances to do teaching that aligned with their research and clinical interest. That was the insight related to forming the team. And then the last insight was a metaphor. The metaphor was of a space that was shared and was mutually beneficial to the community. I wasn't sure exactly what would go into that space, but my metaphor was Piedmont Park. So I told my group, we need a Piedmont Park for our department. For those of you who don't know Atlanta, Piedmont Park is a pretty big park that's in the center of Midtown. And it's beautiful. It's got, a number of like fields that you can play on, playgrounds. There's a variety of restaurants. They'll have concerts there. And so when Colleen and I were dating, that was one of our favorite places to go hang out sometimes, was just to go walk around Piedmont Park, because we could get exercise, we could see the city. You can kind of see high rises. There's botanical gardens that she had a membership to that's really pretty. And so this was the image. Someone had the foresight, instead of just cashing out as much as possible on high rises, the people in the community said, this isn't all about, how many things we can fit in or just kind of managing the bus. Someone had the foresight to envision a space that would promote rest, thriving, community connections. And so what I realized is that the kind of scarcity mindset that was starting to set in our department, because of gradual kind of chipping away budget cuts that were starting to happen, which is common, it was starting to create a sense of that I don't have extra, I don't have anything to give to a community space. And what I realized is I wanted our team to reject that idea. I wanted us to envision, in whatever capacity was possible, that we need things like Piedmont Park in our department. It would probably be more psychological than physical space, but who knows? Who knows what's possible if we kind of work together and kind of envision gradual improvements that would help students towards their goals and kind of form a team, because there's a different kind of energy when, instead of individual people kind of working by themselves, when you start to bring talented people together and have them start talking about the same kinds of problems. And when they have some energy to spare, to invest on trying out different things, you never know what can happen. And so that was my vision. We kind of started tinkering